I still, up until very recently, was a daily cannabis smoker. I never thought of it as being a real hindrance to any sort of my practices up until recently when I started getting into something called the gateway tapes, which use kind of a form of hypnosis. It was actually a program developed by the Monroe Institute, Dr. Robert Monroe, who developed this series of tapes that would help people achieve higher states of consciousness and be even able to transcend the dimensions of this reality through his techniques. I've been doing this only for a couple weeks now, and I've noticed a kind of aversion or repelling my old habits of what I was doing with cannabis. I feel like I've changed my relationship with cannabis, and I've actually started seriously thinking about quitting cannabis altogether. Now, this is due to a few reasons. Now, the reason for my heavy cannabis use when I was younger is I definitely spent a lot of time in low vibration states. I was constantly living in fear, anger, regret, even had some forms of depression when I was younger. And luckily, I was never actually put on any kind of medications for this. I was using cannabis to constantly self medicate myself, and it seemed like it was a good band aid solution for the time being. Up until a few years ago, I was a paramedic who had been working for a decade up until that point. I had gone into some serious mental health issues and had a huge spiral down into the dark depths where, for the first time in my life, I felt like I had to actually get some help with my mental health. It was not easy thing for me to admit, especially being a guy, very sort of living in masculine energy. I tended to do things on my own and I wasn't relying ever on other people to help me, especially when it came to something as so vulnerable as mental health. Now, I was lucky enough to get enrolled in a program to do some cognitive behavioral therapy, look at my life at a different angle, and look at the old memories I had almost like old paintings and be able to look at these paintings a different way, repaint or re enhance areas of these parts of my life. And what I realized then is I've been using cannabis to numb myself from the pains and emotions that I was experiencing back then. And I realized that maybe even though cannabis had helped me cope in those times when I really didn't have anything else to rely on, it had stopped me from processing my deepest, darkest emotions and memories. I then went on a long break and didn't smoke cannabis for months. And with that came many wild dreams and just a new level of awareness. But my relationship with it has really changed, especially since I started doing Robert Monroe's Gateway tapes, which really take your consciousness to another level. I've also been doing daily meditations that I'll find on YouTube. And in addition to that, breath work with Wim Hof. These modalities have made it possible for me to raise my vibration way beyond what the cannabis was helping me to do. There's a book called Power versus Force written by David Hawkins. In this book, he has a really neat consciousness map that lays out the different levels of consciousness and has a number ascribed to the different vibrations. If I look at this book here now, the levels ranging from 20 to 200, which are the lower levels, are they have a life view of being miserable, evil, hopeless, tragic, frightening, disappointing, antagonistic, demanding, and feasible. And with that comes emotions of shame, guilt, apathy, grief, fear, desire, anger, pride, and courage. These are all considered sort of lower level emotions on the spectrum, and cannabis is just above the highest level of courage. So, cannabis and some of these substances do have the ability to pull you up out of these states, even if it's for a temporary amount of time. So, there's probably great value in that, especially if you do dwell in these lower emotions. I'm not saying it's a cure all by any means, but it can give you temporary relief while you look at your challenges from a different perspective, which cannabis can also help you do. That being said, you'll raise your vibration beyond a certain point, beyond the level of 250, which is sort of neutrality. And at that point, you'll realize that cannabis, alcohol, certain substances will actually begin to hinder your spiritual practice, and also just bring you back down to the level of neutrality if you've actually raised your vibration above that level. We see here, if you look at level 250 of neutrality, above that is 310, 350, 400, 500, which is willingness, acceptance, reason, and love. And how amazing it is to reach that level of love, which I believe is kind of right where I'm at right now in my journey, is beginning to reconnect and feel the emotions of love and things I really enjoy in life on a heart centered level. It's really hard for me to express, especially sitting in the masculine energy. I know we don't always express ourselves in this way, but to be able to connect with people I love in my life and feel that connection is something that has been re-sparked in me after almost over a decade. And I feel like although cannabis did contribute to my early journey, it is no longer something that is I consider being a medicine for me in any way, because I've learned other modalities such as breath work, which is so incredible for regulating our body systems and also creating that heart mind connection. I've been experimenting with the gateway tapes, which also take you down into this sort of um, higher levels of consciousness that you will never get to experience on things like cannabis. So the level of experiences I have access to now are far greater, especially my base mental state is also in far better shape, which has allowed me to move away from cannabis as a medicine. I just smoked a joint a couple nights ago with my girlfriend, and it was a completely different experience than what I used to have when I smoked cannabis. I was definitely more relaxed. I enjoyed it more, but only because I knew what that situation was for. It was purely for enjoyment and sharing a moment together with another person who also enjoys cannabis. So I've definitely changed my relationship, and honestly, I'm thinking about quitting cannabis for quite some time before I pick it up again, even on a relationship level. But I'd love to know your experiences with cannabis. Is this something that you feel has been helping your spiritual practice or enhancing your practice? I know some people use cannabis as part of their practices. Or do you feel like it's more of a hindrance to you and maybe affecting your vibration in a negative way compared to how it was before? So plug that down in the comments below. Let's start a conversation, and I'll see you again soon, friends. Peace.